Hey there, welcome to a new episode of our ASMR Minecraft series. It's great to have you back. First of all, I would like to thank you for 50 subscribers, which might be seemingly a small number, but with the comments I get from some of you and some personal reassurance that I received the other day, I'm very happy about how this is all turning out. Makes it feel like it's 5,000 subscribers now. Please, if you do like this video, don't forget to like it, make that subscription if you haven't already, and maybe share it with a couple of friends so that they can join us here in this safe space. Appreciate maybe some unsolicited life advice, maybe just the relaxing experience of building in Minecraft. As requested, in this episode we're going to build a small dock and a pier for a couple of boats just behind this sort of enclosed bay area behind the house that's safe from some of the wind and waves that might sweep over this lovely lake every once in a while, so that we can collect clay, go fishing from a boat, or maybe just row out onto the lake on a calm, romantic evening and stargaze. Ah, that sounds like a delightful thing to do. If you happen to hear some thunder and rain in the background, well, I won't apologize for it. I haven't made it so. But it just started to rain very heavily over here. I think it's quite relaxing. So I thought I'm not going to postpone recording this voiceover. We're also going to decorate this pier and just place some extra plants around the house. It's a beautiful day here, as I said, with the snuggly weather. I got my not coffee this time. I'm actually out of coffee. A disaster, I know. But instead I've made some smoothie, which is one way I prefer to get my vitamin dosage. There's banana in there, couple of celery stalks, and then apple juice, beetroot juice, and an apricot, a peach, yes. Might sound like a bit of a mess, but I promise you it tastes very nice. And of course it's full of lovely vitamins. Since the last video was quite casual, we were just building and talking about a couple of things, I thought that in this one we could delve into some deeper topics. As you remember, in some of these videos we do like to have a conversation and touch upon subjects that might be difficult for some of us, just so that I can share some things that have worked for me, that have helped me in the past, and maybe you can share some of your advice in the comments. And it was in the last video that we settled upon the subject of communication and management of a conflict. So this is what I've prepared today. I suppose it wasn't really much of a preparation, it's just me collecting some things from my experience that I think would be helpful to share. I will make the disclaimer that I'm no therapist at all, I'm not a psychologist. I don't really have any kind of therapeutic experience. However, we all have conflicts nonetheless. Unless we live in the mountains like a Minecraft character, not worrying about anything, just building cute houses. We have colleagues, friends, family, significant others. We go to school or work. Obviously spend time with the family and friends. That are mostly positive, hopefully, but they do give rise to some cases where there's a disagreement. I would say it's a very much human thing to have conflicts, but it's not human at all, it's universal. Even animals have conflicts all the time. It could be about material goods. Yes, even the animals can fight over food. Or maybe a proper place to build a shelter. Could be about all sorts of emotions. I suppose we can also fight over potential mates, as the animals do. Although we like to phrase it in a bit more sophisticated manner, but who's friends with whom and who loves whom is definitely, I suppose, a popular area for conflicts. I remember back in school, of course, be that elementary school, high school, but even university, the drama around perhaps relationships or any kind of interpersonal relations. It's a huge topic. It is important to us because we have emotional investment in there. I'm sure a lot of us have thought back about these times and thought, oh my god, that's such a cringeworthy moment, right? It's so embarrassing to have been upset about such tiny, minuscule things, such insignificant things, because who cares how Stacy from high school is doing now? Well, maybe it's not important anymore, but those moments are also, I think, an essential part of our emotional development. I know certainly how I would currently approach a new friendship or a new relationship is nothing like my previous understanding or first understanding thereof. I believe, as many others, I have come a long way, but I needed some of those embarrassing or just outright bad experiences that drove me to improve and gave the means on how to improve. So don't ever feel bad about having done something embarrassing that eventually counted towards your emotional development. It could even have been just a bad thing. You might have hurt someone. You might have caused a great deal of pain to a person you didn't mean to hurt. And while it's possible that it could have been avoided, it also did help you reach a more developed, advanced understanding. Maybe it's possible to make up for that with that person, make amends. Maybe it's not possible, but from the point of view of emotions, it did have a purpose. Be careful though. I don't want to propagate the, unfortunately, I think quite popular understanding that, yes, it was a mistake, yes, it was stupid, yes, it was horrible, but it made me who I am today, so it's fine. Well, I don't think everything is just fine. We are still responsible for what we do. And if we do hurt other people. But this might be a topic for a different video. Today we'll focus on, yes, conflicts and communication. Perhaps one more thing I would still like to say here as sort of an example. I often see, especially in internet discussions or arguments, often they can't really be called discussions, can they? I see often that people are trying to make the other person upset, and even if that other person is not upset at all, they pretend it's a great victory that, I triggered them, right? I could tap into what they're sensitive about. Besides the fact that these arguments rarely lead to anything interesting or anything at all. Even if you get upset about something on the internet, that doesn't mean they somehow won over you. The internet can be quite a messy place. And if it's about something that matters to you, maybe it's an argument about a social issue. Maybe they insulted something that you truly love, or someone that you truly love. I would say I would rather get upset about small, seemingly insignificant things on the internet than nothing at all. Because if I don't get upset about anything, it means I'm desensitized. I am immune to that kind of emotional, unable, that's a better word, of that kind of emotional investment. And that doesn't just keep me from being upset, but it also keeps me from being happy, enthusiastic, truly overjoyed about something. Surely there's a golden mean here, as well as anywhere else. But what I'm trying to say with this is that even if some conflicts feel stupid, it's often fine to have them. The fact that there is a conflict, that the conflict can be managed. And the conflict is going to be there whether you show it or not. If you are hurt, if you are offended, that's already there. Might as well speak out about it. At the same time, of course, ongoing, prolonged conflicts can hurt us deeply. Hurt others, of course. In general, they're not good things. Resolving a conflict can mean some emotional development, yes. But being stuck in a conflict, in a hostile situation, that just drains us. I suppose if we want to be very analytical about this, after a while, the drain, the loss that we experience with that conflict, be that loss of trust in someone, loss of our good mood, just simply outweighs the potential gain of emotional development. It serves nothing to keep that conflict ongoing. Sometimes I find it's quite strange about what we can have conflicts. Things like jealousy, and I mean romantic jealousy here, which is a conflict about something that hasn't even happened yet, and there's a good chance it never will. We can have conflicts based on love, based on our care for each other. That's supposed to be a good thing. It's supposed to be nurturing and objectively positive, but sometimes we manage to, as they say, smother other people with our love. Sometimes it can be too much for them. And then in those situations, when we feel nothing but love for that person, we actually hurt them. That's very strange, if you ask me. And of course, you have conflicts, and I think this is what came up in the last video, where no one's really at fault. No one is right or wrong. You just have opposing interests or opposing opinions. You could be the absolute best friends otherwise. There's definitely no bad intentions, but there's still a conflict of interests, and it does cause stress, or maybe even worse things. Well, I'm certain that there's no magic solution that works for everything. I can't give you a method by which you will be able to solve every conflict. That is just utopistic. and it doesn't make much sense. However, I can share some things that have worked well for me. That could be a good lesson for some of you, or maybe you could say something about this. Maybe you could tell me if it doesn't work for you. While not a method, one thing I realized, well, I suppose a bit too late. It was about understanding each other, of course. This is related to prolonged, ongoing conflicts, as I mentioned, that often result in repeated arguments and fights. If someone's coming at you with the intent to physically hurt you, then it's time to be strong or time to run away. But right here I'm talking about a different kind of conflicts, the ones that arise at work or the family. Although, of course, some of these conflicts can unfortunately also lead to physical harm. What I realized was that understanding has multiple different levels, I suppose. I definitely was impacted by this for a long time. Perhaps I still am. I am nowhere near perfect, and I would be lying very nastily if I told you that I don't have any conflicts anymore. Of course I do. But the first level that I saw was just the lack of understanding. In the Hungarian video we made the example of, well, I don't want to say anything about you, so I'm going to be the example myself in a negative way. So the example is that my mother asks me to take out the garbage. With the lack of understanding, there is nothing, no information that I can rely on. I just hear her calling for me from the other room. I only have a general idea of what this could be about because I know my mother, of course. But I don't know what she wants. I have no idea what she's about to tell me. And this is also what you often see with internet arguments. The available information is so limited that people often rely on what they just know and substitute the missing information with something that came from their heads. Obviously, that leads to everything but a constructive understanding of the other person. It is what's often called the strawman logical fallacy. Now, you said something about maybe a political topic, some social issue, or just about anything else. Well, that's stupid. And because you said this, everything else that you might say is also stupid. It goes against everything I think. You're probably this and that, that kind of a person. And we're attacking the strawman that we built, the scarecrow, instead of the other person and what they actually think. In this case, if I try to take a step forward in understanding the situation, I don't know anything about what my mother wants to ask of me. I just think, oh, she's calling for me, it's gonna be some nonsense again. I'm tired of this. I'm so tired, I don't even want to be around her today. Of course, I could have a positive understanding too, but then it's no conflict, so that's not what we're talking about. And it does help a lot, a positive approach to these things, but when we don't have it, the result is this lack of understanding. I think in these situations it's just about impossible to actually resolve the conflict. So as much as possible we should try to avoid them. If you don't have enough information, just don't fight. Either learn more or leave the scene. Now the second part, or the second level of understanding, in my opinion, is, well, maybe we could call it the rational understanding. It's a basic level of understanding where we just know what the other person wants, what their goal is. My mother tells me, please take out the trash, and so I know that. Quite simple. At the same time, when it's about something more serious, we might find that the communication gets stuck here. Yes, I know what they want, but I want something else. We return and repeat the same arguments over and over again, not making any progress, but not knowing better what to say. On this level, while it's possible to resolve the ongoing problem, it might leave some splinters. I think you might be familiar with the phrase, or just the general thought of, yeah, but not like this. Yes, we managed to agree upon something, but the very idea that we had to fight is it's so bad. This should be self-explanatory, right? This should be obvious to that person. Why don't they understand? Without me having to explain. And the third level that I'm not saying I discovered, but I realized its existence, would be a full understanding, a complete understanding, both on a rational and on an emotional level. I understand what the other person wants, but I also understand why. I understand what their motivation behind that goal is, and that motivation could be I suppose if we return to the topic of taking out the garbage, my mother wants me to take out the trash because I have a little sibling, and she wants them to see that in this household we help each other and everyone takes care of some tasks. Maybe my mother asked me to do it because she's not feeling well. She enjoys that she could perhaps interact with me, because I've been very secluded lately. I haven't been talking to her enough. Maybe she's trying to get me out of my room so that we could exchange a few words. I'm just making things up here, but you get the idea. It's not about taking out the trash. Taking out the trash is also important, of course. It's not manipulation. My mother does want the trash taken out. But there are other reasons, and a bit more intricate, detailed features of her request. When I understand this point of view of the other person is not alien, not so foreign anymore. If it's not foreign, I don't try to reflexively reject it. Maybe I am in a similar situation in some other area of my life, so I get it. Maybe not. Of course, it doesn't make the problem go away. But the more we understand, simply the better. This is something I've seen and done, unfortunately, before as well. Reflexively rejecting what the other person has to say. In some really long, ongoing arguments or problems, I found that whatever we were saying has already been said 1,000 times. It made absolutely no sense to repeat those same things over and over again. We already knew what the other person was going to say because we heard it so many times. That was still the second level of understanding. In one of those arguments, when I realized this, I told myself, okay, I've said everything that I can say about this. They've listened to everything. It's clearly not making any difference. So, as bad as it might sound, everything I have to say is wrong, in the sense that it won't lead to a solution. Now, I think it's quite obvious that there's an enormous amount of pride we have to swallow to come to this conclusion. It's crazy. It is difficult. Perhaps even if we realize this is just not going to work, our ego is going to be too powerful. But that doesn't mean that we can't do it. Of course we can. We're able to. So I said, yes, everything I can possibly say here is wrong. That means I have to say something new. What that new thing is, I don't know. Because of course, everything that I've been thinking, which have been my thoughts, my goals, my understanding of the issue, that has already been said. So if I want to say something new, I have to stop and think. More importantly, I have to stop and listen to the other person. Now, if you thought it was difficult so far, obviously this conclusion didn't come to me in the midst of a heated debate. You often need time for this. When you are in the midst of a heated debate, it goes against our nature, I think, as humans, to step back and say, okay, you're actually right, or you might be right, but I need to stop and think. And of course, especially if someone else tells you this, imagine hearing that. Look, respectfully, everything you say is wrong. Now, if you heard that, obviously you're not going to be more considerate and thoughtful all of a sudden. But that is the lesson, that is the gist of it. And I think that was one of the first times when I managed to come to this full understanding that, okay, yeah, this is why they think this. This is why they're telling me what doesn't seem to make sense. Because they are motivated by this other thing. Their fears, their worries, their own ego as well. They're not different. I'm not saying they are right. You just have to understand them. Nothing I say here is about proving yourself right. That's not the idea today. Another similar experience was also an argument where there was something that had to be done, but it was very inconvenient for me to do it. And so for a long time the topic came up again, and it was always, it has to be done. Yes, I know, but I can't manage. Yes, I know, but it has to be done. And so on and so forth. And then one day I just randomly thought of a different kind of solution. You could say outside of the box. It was just a random idea, I'm not trying to glorify myself here, it was just an idea I had. And I proposed this idea to my debate partner, you could say. And their reaction was, oh, is that right? The solution itself was not difficult, not complicated at all. But we were so invested and just sunken in our frenzy of trying to prove ourselves right that we just stopped thinking about what the most effective way to solve this problem would be. The original issue was simply lost. That's how focused we were. on our own point of view and on the other person being wrong. And that was also a bit of a revelation for me, that you could really have argument upon argument, and it's not a gradual process. You're not suddenly going to get your point through. Ah, this is going to be the time when they understand. No. There has to be a sort of breakthrough. You have to make that breakthrough happen if you really want to solve that blockage in the communication. Let's see, what else is there that I could share with you? Something that I also am still learning, you could say, is decisiveness. I am, I think, by nature, someone who prefers the golden mean, a compromise. And while it can be very useful to have an eye for the possibilities of compromise, I can cite some situations from my personal experience where it would have served me much better not to try endlessly balancing between the two decisions, but to make that decision when it had to be made. Sort of bite the bullet, you could say. It might be difficult, but it might serve you much better on the long term. I suppose the decisiveness about whether a conflict has any chance of whether you can salvage anything from that conflict, or it's time to let the fact that you will get your way go. Because of course the sooner you finalize something like this, the sooner you can move on to, well, the healing phase. For you, maybe for other people involved in the same issue. If it was an important conflict, then likely there's a need for some recovery. I read just a post the other day that was about this phrase, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And it had the clarification that I found quite useful. That it's not what doesn't kill you that makes you stronger. It's the recovery and the healing part that makes you stronger. A very basic and simple example of this would be our bones. What you break heals and becomes stronger than it used to be. But it was functioning perfectly well before breaking. And it's not the breaking that made it stronger. It's the strenuous effort of the body to move the necessary materials to where it needs to be built into the bone structure. It was about eating the right way so you get enough minerals. It was a loss of rest, not using that limb or whatever was broken. And of course, it is also about not doing, again, what made you break a limb in the first place. So yes, I suppose this also ties back to what we were saying about our emotional development. It does help to have embarrassing, silly situations. But it's not the issues that ultimately help us develop, but the recovery period after. And if it's about, an argument, some emotional problem, it's also the fact that we understand how we could have managed it better. If I get upset about something on the internet and just completely embarrass myself by writing a very angry comment out of just the rage that's in my heart, well, I might learn not to do that, because a couple of days later I realized how silly that was. It's nice to know that, but it was not the very angry comment itself that made us realize. It was a reflection on it afterward. I'm thinking about some way to sum this up, but because I shared no actual methods, and I don't want to, that's proving to be a bit difficult. I would say we can rely on what we've talked about so many times before in previous videos. Mindfulness here as well. In general, we should approach conflicts with the proper attention, gather the information that we need to make our decisions, make those decisions in a considerate, thoughtful manner. Try to have the proper understanding to make those decisions. And don't forget the importance of the recovery after. Because it's not just about us. It's often very much not about us. In an interpersonal relationship, with conflict, it's the bond between two people that is damaged. That is what needs to recover. That includes both people. Well, I think that's about as much as I had in mind that I could safely share with you about communication and conflicts, because I also, again, don't want to pretend I'm any kind of a therapist. I don't want to be responsible for suggesting something that maybe worked for me, but I have no proof that it would work for others or in other situations. I think that would be quite irresponsible. So I'd rather just stick to what I can safely say. Please, if you're still watching the video, I would genuinely appreciate if you have any thoughts about what we just discussed, if you could share those in the comments. I promise not every video on this channel is this serious, but maybe sometimes we do need to be serious. We are about relaxation here, but relaxation doesn't always mean carelessness and not giving a damn about anything. That said though, let me just move on to some more light-hearted topics here and tell you a bit about what's going on in this video. Minecraft wise. So as you can see, we finally managed to make our plants grow. And all it took was for us to go to sleep. I suppose that could also be a takeaway for conflict management, can't it? Sometimes you just need to sleep on it. If you keep watching, if you keep paying attention to something all the damn time, just because you're watching it, it's not going to grow any faster. You just need to give it some time. You just need to give people some time, maybe. Return to the topic when you're feeling refreshed and rested. Most likely will work better. So, we replanted some more seeds in the garden and on right next to the lake. The little tree saplings that we've been planting everywhere, because we've been cutting trees too, are also coming along very nicely. We're being very sustainable here. You also saw me make a cut in a video, for which I apologize. It was just a segment of a couple of minutes where I forgot to turn on the recording, but I just went to the cave and collected some vines for decoration. And right here, because for some of the decoration we need a painting, I'm looking for that one sheep that usually hangs out around this area, and I heard it make the sounds, the sheep sounds, the baa, but I couldn't find it for the life of me for some time, because it hid in the cave, as you will be able to see shortly. Doing all this decoration, I thought it would be time for a video where we just jump into creative mode and build something as nice and detailed as possible, without the restrictions of looking for the resources things like that. There's the sheep, as you can see. But it didn't manage to hide from us. So now we have the wool for the painting. We can head back. Of course, the summer house game is also in the plans, and well, unfortunately I have many more ideas than hours to produce content for you, as much as I love doing it. I've also been thinking about tales, just good nice stories, whether you haven't been told fairy tales as a kid, or maybe you've been told fairy tales as a kid and you loved them so much you would now like to listen to them in an ASMR video. Through some family, I have access to a lot of quite interesting and not very mainstream storybooks, fairy tale books, that I think would be interesting to share. Of course, it's also been suggested that I make sort of traditional ASMR videos, just tapping sounds, crinkling sounds, so on. But for that I would need to buy a proper camera first, and maybe a microphone, because right now my setup is so rudimentary, so basic, it's almost funny. But as you can hear, it's working just fine. So here we turned on cheat mode, creative mode, and we're just going to prepare those decorations with the help of CIT resource packs. A lot of plants, as you can see, these hanging vines. We have a water bucket, a box, a barrel, just as some lively clutter for the dog. We have a life belt, absolutely essential, next to the water, and some more plants. Since we are in a forest setting, I suppose it makes sense that the edges of our garden are a little bit overgrown. We're also going to add these beautiful flowers in barrels or boxes on the dock, and one CIT bag allows us to place light strings on fences, and it's modeled in quite a clever way. Looks like it's wrapping around a fence post. It looks lovely, you'll see soon. Of course, this emergency hurricane lamp as well, in case there's a bad weather and the lake is being stormy. That sounds a bit silly, but that's fine. But in case there's a bad weather and we can't see much, it's going to come in handy if we want to row out for some reason, or just across the lake maybe. Now, regarding this Minecraft series, I was also thinking, as I indicated in the poll, that we could do some other things besides building. We could, well, build a stable and befriend the horsey that's sometimes trotting around our garden, strangely all alone in a forest. I'm sure it has an interesting story to tell. We could also go and have a visit to the village that we encountered when we were on our grand quest looking for wool. Going everywhere but the right direction, multiple possible right directions. We could check what's going on there, and also when we were on that one hike or trip, we did notice an interesting looking tower in the distance. I'm not sure what that is. It's definitely not something from vanilla Minecraft, but I don't think I've encountered it in other playthroughs. So hopefully, if it's not too intimidating, we can go and check that out too. Of course, we can always stay here on our little lakeside property. Well, it's not really property. In this world, there are no such things. We just live here, very simply put. And we could build a greenhouse here. That's nice because it has a lot of plants, of course. We could always expand the house. And of course expand the garden as well. Not with a greenhouse, but with more raised flower beds, flower boxes, or just beds for crops. And we could continue decorating as well. As you can see, we're placing the life belt and these beautiful flower barrels. The emergency hurricane lamp, although I'm not sure where that would fit the best. And now that I accidentally placed it without an item frame, it reverted to its basic looks. So we need to name it again with an anvil. Sorry for cheating a little bit here as well. Well, it's only cheating if we have another purpose, but our purpose here is to build something nice. We're not competing against anyone. I certainly hope I don't know, make you feel uncomfortable by using creative mode. We are creative, so we need to use creative mode every once in a while. That anvil is floating on the water. Kind of strange. What I forgot was I actually put some stones in this furnace here that we can also name, and we can just place as clutter. These seemingly meaningless objects. Oh, that's an interesting combination. Seemingly meaningless objects that just add so much liveliness and, as they say, make things smell like life. They add so much interest to our scenes. as do all the plants, of course, that we are placing. So these ferns they're beautiful, huge leaves, cover a lot of area, which is good. And some of these grass bunches look very nice as well. It's typically those plants that look very soft and fluffy from a distance, and of course it's such a betrayal when you go up to that plant in real life and it's actually not so nice to the touch. It scratches you and whatnot. But well, so is nature. We can't really be angry about that. At least it's not nettle. That would not be nice to have around this beautiful house. We have enough trouble as is with the sweetberry bushes that I can't seem to be able to walk past without hurting myself on their thorns. That said, I think our garden is coming along very nicely, especially with all these crops growing. Soon we'll be able to make bread, maybe some fruit salads from the cantaloupe, the berries that are growing, maybe some other stuff. We'll see what's available, what kind of recipes are at our disposal. In fact, come to think of it, we could use those light strings that fit on fences in the garden as well. See, the possibilities are endless. I just feel so bad for not having all the time in the world to prepare more and more videos for you. Of course, now we place the light strings. Unfortunately, they're quite expensive in the sense that they are made of lanterns, so maybe we'll get some extra iron too in the next episode, because you use a lot of lights. But that's done beautifully. Now it's nicely lit up, visible from a distance. And of course, if we do want to go ahead with that moonlit stargazing romantic evening, it's going to add a lot of atmosphere. I had a bit of trouble with the item frames on these walls. I just didn't understand how they worked, I suppose, or where I should hit to remove them. But in the end I did manage to figure it out. So we'll just try to give the impression that this wall is a bit older than what it is, as we actually built it in this episode, and we'll encourage some of these lovely plants to grow on it, creep up on it, and of course these are also CIT items, not the vanilla vines. They have a bit more shape and texture. I don't know if you can actually place vines on walls in Minecraft, but you can place these for sure. And they fit together very nicely. It does look like it's all on one. It's all stemming from one plant. They're not really vines, it's more like ivy or wild grape. And just the front of the house could use some extra ivy coverage as well, and including this hanging bunch of ivy, I mats made from oak leaves. That's very nice and cozy. And of course, since we have some more hanging vines and ivy, and because it looks a bit too much on the facade of the house, what better way to, or what better place to put leaves than up on a tree where they belong. So I just took the courage and climbed up on the roof, standing on this barrel, not very stable, so please don't try it at home, and made this tree look a bit more majestic, a bit older, an ancient tree that has been watching over this part of the forest for perhaps hundreds of years, and it's developed these branches that are just so old they droop down, they hang down. Or maybe it is actually ivy on the tree itself. Hopefully it's not draining too much energy from it and nutrients. And just that one couple of stones I'll just put in front of the stone cutter as if we've been working right there. And so with that, I think we have everything that we were planning for this video. We enhanced the house and the garden with this brick path, the ivy on the walls, the ivy hanging from the canopy of the tree. We finally got our plants to grow, planted some new ferns, built this little staircase to be able to get down to this dock. Looks lively and cluttered, full of plants, beautiful romantic lights, and a lifebelt, of course. Friends, thank you very much for joining me for this video. I wish you a great day or night, whatever it is where you are. Lots of success in dealing with conflicts. Goodbye.